Have you ever sold something knowing it wasn't exactly what you promised and told yourself it didn't really matter in the moment? Not a big lie, not something illegal, just a small stretch of the truth that feels harmless because it helps you close the deal faster and move on. Maybe you called something premium when it was only average. Maybe you guaranteed performance you weren't completely sure about. Maybe you believed you would fix it later if anything went wrong. And maybe nothing went wrong at first. That's the dangerous part. Because in business, consequences rarely arrive immediately. They don't interrupt your success. They don't stop your sales. In fact, sometimes they do the opposite. They let you win. They let you grow. They let you believe you're doing something right. Until one day, without warning, everything begins to shift. Customers stop returning your calls. Reviews start changing tone. People who once trusted you begin to hesitate, then disappear completely. And by the time you notice it, the damage is no longer about one product or one promise. It's about a pattern you didn't realize you were building. This is the story of a man who believed a small promise could never hurt his business because it worked in the short term and no one complained loud enough. Until the cost finally showed up. And when it did, it didn't ask for permission. It took everything he had built. The market was loud before the sun was fully up, a constant hum of voices, engines, and footsteps blending into something that never truly stopped. Rows of small shops stretched across narrow streets, each one packed with products that looked almost identical at first glance, yet somehow carried completely different prices. Customers moved quickly, comparing, asking questions, checking, doubting, deciding. Nothing stayed still for long. In that place, competition wasn't aggressive in obvious ways. No one shouted over each other, no one forced a sale, but every detail mattered, from how you spoke, to how you smiled, to the exact words you chose when describing what you were selling. Because in a market like that, people didn't just buy products, they bought confidence. And confidence was fragile. One good recommendation could bring a customer back for years. One bad experience could travel faster than any advertisement. It passed from person to person, quietly but effectively, shaping decisions long before anyone stepped into your store. Most shop owners understood this. They didn't just protect their profit, they protected their reputation, because they knew the two were connected in ways you couldn't always see immediately. But not everyone saw it that way. Among the crowded stalls was a small electronics shop owned by a man named Ramesh. It wasn't the biggest store, and it wasn't the cheapest either, but it was positioned just well enough to catch steady traffic. And on most days, that was enough. From the outside, nothing about his business looked unusual. He greeted customers politely, answered questions confidently, and closed sales with ease. But behind that calm routine, he had begun to notice something he couldn't ignore. People were walking past his shop, and each time it happened, the same thought returned, sharper than before. If they're choosing someone else, I need to give them a reason not to. The first time it happened, it didn't feel like a decision. It felt like an adjustment, something small enough to ignore, something that could be justified if anyone ever questioned it. A customer walked into Ramesh's shop holding a charger, asking a simple question about quality, about durability, about whether it would last longer than the cheaper options sold down the street. Ramesh knew the answer. The charger was decent, but it wasn't original quality, not even close. It worked, yes, but not consistently, not reliably over time. Under normal circumstances, he would have explained that difference clearly, letting the customer decide. But this time, he hesitated, just for a second. Then he said it. It's the same quality as the original. You won't notice a difference. The words came out smoothly, almost naturally, as if he had already practiced them in his mind. The customer nodded, reassured by the confidence in his voice, paid without asking more questions, and left satisfied. Nothing bad happened. No complaint, no return, no immediate consequence. If anything, it felt like a success. Ramesh stood there for a moment, replaying the interaction in his head. The ease of it surprised him, the speed of it, the way a small shift in wording had removed hesitation completely. He told himself it wasn't really a lie. The product worked, the customer needed it, and besides, People exaggerated all the time in this market. He wasn't doing anything different, just keeping up. That night, he didn't think about it much. But the next day, when another customer asked a similar question, he didn't hesitate at all. The answer came faster, more confident, more certain, and with each repetition, the line moved again, just slightly, just enough to make the next promise easier than the last. At first, nothing went wrong, and that was exactly what made everything feel justified. The products sold faster, conversations became shorter, and customers seemed more confident the moment Ramesh spoke. The hesitation he used to see in their eyes began to disappear, replaced by quick decisions and easy payments. It felt efficient. It felt like progress. Each day, his sales improved just enough to be noticeable, not dramatically, not in a way that would draw attention, but steadily, quietly, like something building in the background. He started closing deals he would have lost before, convincing customers who would have walked away just weeks earlier. And the best part was, no one complained. Not immediately. A few customers returned with minor issues, but Ramesh handled them the same way others did, with calm explanations, small replacements, and just enough reassurance to keep things from escalating. In his mind, that confirmed what he already believed. This wasn't wrong. This was how the market worked. He began to lean into it more. His words became sharper, more precise, crafted to remove doubt before it could fully form. High quality, long-lasting, same as original. Phrases that once felt like a stretch now felt completely natural. And with every successful sale, his confidence grew. He started noticing something else too. Customers who bought from him once were still coming back, at least for a while. That was enough for him. Enough to prove that whatever he was doing wasn't damaging anything important. At least, not yet. Because what he couldn't see was what happened after they left. The delayed frustration, the quiet disappointment, the conversations happening elsewhere, outside his shop, where his words were no longer present to defend themselves. To him, everything still looked fine. And when everything looks fine, it becomes dangerously easy to believe it will stay that way. The shift didn't become obvious to Ramesh until the day someone stood in front of him and asked for help, not as a customer looking for a deal, but as someone depending on his honesty. It was late in the afternoon when a delivery driver walked into the shop, holding a damaged phone in one hand and the charger he had bought just days earlier in the other. His expression wasn't angry, just tired. "I think this caused it," he said quietly. "The phone overheated overnight. It's the only new thing I used." Ramesh recognized the charger immediately. He knew exactly which batch it came from, and he knew the risk that came with it. It wasn't guaranteed to fail, but it wasn't reliable either, especially under long use. For a brief moment, everything slowed down. This wasn't a random complaint. This wasn't something he could easily explain away. The connection was clear, and he understood it better than the person standing in front of him. "I can't afford to replace this," the driver added. "This phone is how I work." The words landed heavier than expected. Ramesh could have admitted it. He could have taken responsibility, offered a refund, or even helped cover part of the damage. It wouldn't have fixed everything, but it would have drawn a line, a place where the pattern stopped. Instead, he chose something else. "These things happen," he said, keeping his tone steady. "It's not necessarily the charger. Phones can fail too." The explanation was just believable enough. Not convincing, but sufficient. The driver hesitated, searching for certainty that wasn't there, then slowly nodded. There was no argument, no confrontation, just a quiet acceptance shaped more by lack of options than trust. When he left, the shop felt strangely quiet, and although nothing had visibly changed, something had settled into place, because that was the moment Ramesh stopped questioning what he was doing. And once that question disappears, everything else becomes easier. The change didn't arrive all at once, and that's what made it harder to understand at first. There was no single moment where everything collapsed, no clear signal that something had gone wrong. Instead, it began quietly, almost invisibly, in ways that could easily be dismissed. A customer didn't return, then another. Messages took longer to reply, and when they did, The tone felt different, shorter, less certain. Questions became more specific, more cautious, as if people were no longer taking his words at face value. At first, Ramesh blamed the market, more competition, changing trends, better offers from other shops. But the pattern continued. Reviews started appearing online, not aggressively negative, but enough to create doubt. Words like "not as expected" and "stopped working too soon" showed up again and again, each one small on its own, but together forming something much harder to ignore. Then came the moment he couldn't explain away. A regular customer walked past his shop without stopping. No greeting, no hesitation, just a quick glance, and then nothing. That was new, that was different, because it wasn't about one product anymore. It wasn't about one mistake. It was about how people now saw him. Ramesh stood there, watching the flow of customers move around him instead of toward him, and for the first time, the connection became impossible to avoid. Every small promise, every stretched truth, every moment he chose convenience over honesty had not disappeared. They had accumulated, quietly, patiently, and now they were returning, not as a single problem, but as a complete shift in trust. If you've ever wondered whether small decisions really matter in the long run, this is where the answer begins to show. And if stories like this make you think a little deeper about business, trust, and consequences, consider subscribing, because sometimes the smallest choices create the biggest outcomes. By the time Ramesh fully understood what had happened, there was nothing dramatic left to fix. No argument to win, no single complaint to resolve, no clear moment he could point to and say, "That's where everything went wrong." The damage didn't look like a crisis. It looked like silence. Fewer customers walked in, fewer conversations started, fewer chances to explain. The shop was still open, the products still lined the shelves, but something essential was missing. The easy trust that once made every interaction simple had disappeared, replaced by hesitation that never fully went away. He tried to adjust. He spoke more carefully, offered clearer explanations, avoided the exaggerated promises he once relied on. But now, the same words that used to convince people felt weaker, as if they carried the weight of everything that came before. Because they did. Trust doesn't reset just because you decide to change. It remembers the pattern that built it, and it responds to that pattern long after you stop repeating it. Standing there, day after day, Ramesh began to understand something he had overlooked from the beginning. In business, you don't just sell products, you build expectations. And once those expectations are broken often enough, people don't wait to see if you improve. They move on, slowly at first, then completely. Nothing was taken from him unfairly. Nothing was lost by accident. It was simply the result of what he had chosen, over and over again. And if there's one thing worth remembering, it's this. The smallest promises are often the ones that define everything. If this story made you pause for a moment, that's already valuable. And if you want more real stories about business, decisions, and consequences, you can subscribe and follow along.